It's time to take you inside the huddle. Here we go. Straight from the source. This is the Players Club with JJ and Alex, featuring Cougar offensive lineman Connor Pay on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It's another edition of the Players Club right here, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex Keary, Jeremiah Jensen, of course, and our weekly guest, Connor Pay, BYU offensive lineman, captain of this offense. Hey, week one in the books, Connor. How you feeling about it? Nice little W in the first week?
Week one in the books, man. Yeah, no, it feels good. It's good to be in the win column and to feel like we played pretty well on offense. Obviously, a good amount of things that we can clean up still, and but it was good to go out there and have a lot of yards, score a lot of points. It's obviously something that we didn't do very well last year, so it was good to go out and do that in week one.
We expected Jake Retzlaff to be the starter on Saturday, and that was indeed the case. And now that you can talk about it, how did he separate himself in camp and earn that starting job?
I think it was just his consistency, because him and Gary both pushed each other really hard during training camp, and they both played really well, which I think elevated both their play, because they're like, oh man, got to step it up, because Gary had a good day or Jake had a good day, and I think at the end of the day, Jake was just the one that was able to consistently move the offense down the field, a little more. And I think, Gary's such a weapon, though, that I'm sure we're going to find a way to use him at some point.
Let's chat a little bit about obviously everybody talked about, that was such a storyline. I'm glad that that's not the storyline anymore about whether, there's going to be who the starting quarterback is. Although we as media people have no other recourse this week, like the reflex of still asking about, so what's Gary Bohannon's role going to be this week? Colin's like, I'm not going to talk about that. I don't want to tell you guys. I was like, why are we asking? Look, now you have your quarterback. Like, now you can move forward with these things, but you've been in now across a span of, I guess it would be technically 5 games, with Jake as the head of that huddle. What have you seen from 2023 Jake Retzlaff to this year, like just in that difference of having the offseason, going through what he did, and then being able to kind of what's the new version of Jake Retzlaff? Because I think we all looked and went, man, that's a guy who looks a lot more confident.
Yeah, I think he definitely has a lot more of a command and a control of the huddle. And I think that just comes with a better understanding of the offense. It's a lot easier for the operation to be smooth and all that stuff when your quarterback knows everything that's going on. And I think last year, he was still new to the system, still trying to grasp everything. And so, a lot of times, we were last year, we're in the huddle, helping him, making sure he understands everything with the formations, the motions, all that stuff. And now it's flipped on its head where, he's in complete control of the huddle, and he understands everything that's going on. And, he was already smart in terms of, recognizing defense and doing all that kind of stuff. But now that he's got our system, and he's been able to digest it for a full off season, he's just a lot more in command and in control.
We look at the rushing numbers. We talked about how important it would be for you guys to have success on the ground this year and what that would do for the offense. In game one, mission accomplished, 179 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. How do you feel about the run game after one game?
I'm happy with that. Because I think we mentioned last week just how this is not an easy defense to run the football against. Even though FCS team, when they run that 3-3 stack defense and they moved a bunch, it makes it hard to run the ball, because essentially what they're trying to do is just gum everything up in the middle and force you to throw it over their head or beat them on the edges. And so, I felt like being able to handle all the movement, all the weird things they were doing on defense, and still be able to pump out 4, 5, 6, 7-yard runs, was really happy with that, to give our offense a little more balance. And, it was just kudos to A-Rod too for pounding that rock. I think we ran the ball 46 or 47 times.
47 times, yeah.
And so, I think, that just showed his trust and his confidence in us. And we knew going into this game there were going to be some dirty runs that are 1, 2, 3 yards, just because the way that defense played. But we also knew that, because of that, there were going to be some that popped, and that once we consistently ran the ball, we were going to be able to throw it over their head a little bit, and that's what happened.
Nobody wants the dirty runs, Connor. That's a T-shirt for you. You can make that one up during the offseason. As you get ready this week, obviously now you start to fire up the the preparation for another opponent. This one is 2 times harder, I always like to say, because you're going on the road, but you're also playing an SMU team that is checks notes in the ACC now. So, of course, the ACC SMU Mustangs. But, I mean, you're going down to Dallas, so there's already a hostile environment situation on top of it. What have you guys already seen so far studying this Mustangs defense?
Well, they're a good team, man. They're a good team. I think they had for whatever reason, had a little bit of struggles in week 0 against Nevada, and then, had a really good game, and granted against a lesser opponent, but still played really well this last week. And their defense is stout and strong. They're basing out of a 4-2, and they don't move or stunt a whole lot. They pressure a little bit, but nothing crazy. They kind of play base defense and be like, look, we're going to be stronger than you. We're going to be more disciplined than you. We're going to hold our gaps better than you. And they're really consistent on defense. And so, it's going to be a good challenge for us. Big, strong opponent. We're excited. We're excited to go down there and accept the challenge.
I'm curious about this. When you guys have to sit back and analyze a game, and when it's against an FCS opponent, how do you evaluate yourselves knowing that that's FCS competition? The next week you're going to have to play Power 4 competition on the road. How do you guys figure that out? Kind of weigh where you match up and where you're at.
Reality
it feels like you kind of have to take that into evaluation. I'm just curious what you guys do behind the scenes to account for that.
No, that's definitely a factor too, because and I think that shows a lot of why the schemes between these two teams are so different. Like even SIU wasn't oblivious to the fact that maybe one-on-one, they were a little bit lesser players, and so they have to do all that weird stuff on defense. And so, honestly, it's kind of a hard game to look at. It's like, okay, how do we do just one-on-one man blocks? We're moving the line of scrimmage. It's like, well, oftentimes we didn't even get the chance because I'm blocking. I have a 0 technique, and I have to keep my eyes on a 5 technique who might be long sticking, into the A gap, and it's just it makes things a little more challenging in that aspect. But I think it's easy, and I think a lot of the things we saw on tape is you kind of just have to evaluate yourself for yourself, not necessarily look at the opponent, because it's about what we do. It's not about what they do. Regardless of who the opponent is, and Coach Woods is huge on that. And we played pretty well as an offense, but we got our lickings today too. A little bit in that meeting because we were sloppy a little bit with our technique at times, and just some other things. And he's always harping on that fact that, like, look, I don't care who we're playing. It's not about them. It's not about what they do. It's about what we do, and we have to be more consistent and better at what we do. And so that's kind of the approach and how we looked at the game over this last weekend. Just, okay, now we can identify 2 or 3 main things that we felt like were recurring themes in the game that maybe that we did well, and the recurring themes of things that we struggled with, so that we can emphasize them and fit them into the game plan for this week against SMU.
Connor, how has your leadership evolved over the last little while? Like, obviously you've got a couple of years of your guys, looking up to you quite a bit, but you've been in the program a long time. But like, how do you evaluate yourself on like how far you've come as a leader, and like, and what you've learned works and doesn't work when it comes to, and how much you're allowed to like really even kind of get on guys or ask more of dudes that you're around, and how that works for you, and how far you've come as a leader?
I think it has changed, quite a bit especially from this year to last year, just because of how last year was going, and just a lot of issues we were having in our own position room, but just as a team too in general. That I was a pretty big head, as a leader last year, and a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling at people and stuff. And I haven't had to do that almost at all this year, because the guys are locked in and they want to get better, and I think you know, one of the ways that I guess it's kind of hard to measure leadership, but I
Yeah.
think one of the ways I try to is, how do the other players on the team, but in my position room especially, approach me? Like, are they willing to hold me accountable the same way that I'm holding them accountable? Because if they're not, then I'm failing as a leader, and I'm not enabling them as a leader to feel like, they have to hold the standard the same way I have to hold the standard. Great leadership spreads.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, there's been times this year where it's like, hey, it's not the funnest thing in the world, but I may have screwed something up, and Waylon will turn to me and be like, hey, bro, what are you doing? Like, you screwed that up. You got to do this. And then I'll be like, and sometimes I'm a little irritated at first, but it's always like, hey, okay, I'm glad that Waylon feels comfortable enough to do that to me, and Kyle the same way, Caleb, all of us, the way we're able to just hold each other accountable. And it's like, how can I call myself the leader of our room and hold people accountable if I won't show the example of how to be held accountable by somebody else as well? Um, and so I think that's been an evolution that, has happened a lot this season and in the off season too, just trying to make myself more approachable and more realizing that, like, hey, like, yes, I have a lot of starts, I'm a captain, all these things, but I'm in the trenches battling just like you guys are. Like, we're in this together. Like, there's no difference between what I do and what you do. It's a team effort, and we win as a team, we lose as a team, we succeed as a team, we fail as a team. And and so I think that's been a really cool thing to have happen. Just kind of the cohesiveness and watching the leadership attributes spread throughout the O-line room has been, at least for me, someone who kind of had to do it by myself last year, has been pretty fun to watch.
How did the team find out about Jay Hill's health scare last week, and what was the reaction, and how did you guys process that throughout the weekend? That could become a distraction. It seemed to be an inspiration.
No, for sure. And I think the first thing Coach Hill, we when we came into our team meeting before the game on Friday, um, you know, we kind of noticed that, like, Coach Hill wasn't in the room, but also sometimes, the coordinators have stuff they're doing or something. They're not in every team meeting, and so didn't think anything of it at first. But then Kalani got up and was just like, hey, wanted to give you guys an update. We got Coach Hill on the phone. He had a little bit of a health scare and he wants to talk to you guys. And so they put him up on a Zoom call from the hospital in the team meeting. And he explained that, he kind of went through and, just explained what happened on Thursday night and how he ended up having the heart attack, and, how he was going to he had already had a procedure at that point, and then he was going to have another one Saturday morning. And just told us that he didn't know if he was going to be able to make it to the game, but that he was going to try. And obviously it's shocking and kind of jarring, because Coach Hill's super energetic, super active, always in the weight room with us lifting, 49 years old, to just out of nowhere have a heart attack. It's just kind of, and just kind of that reality that it could have been very, very different.
Yeah.
Right. There's a chance that, obviously that could have been on the totally opposite side and he may not have made it. Obviously very jarring at first.
Yeah.
But Coach Hill was huge on, like, look, I'm talking to you guys because I don't want this to be a distraction, all this stuff, and basically went back into coach mode. And just wanted us to play well. I said, I'm going to do my best to get to the game if I can. And thankfully he was able to come and be in the box. But yeah, no, it was, I mean, we really kind of just rallied around him a little bit because that was his message from his hospital bed, even was just to go out, play hard, execute the game plan, and just know, like, it's just when, I think some of my teammates have talked about this in some of the interviews they've done, but now it's like when he turns to you and tells you to toughen up a little bit, and to suck some things up as the season gets hard, or maybe you're hurting in practice, has a different meaning now to know this guy had a heart attack and 2 days later he's in the booth coaching our game.
Yeah.
It's he's the epitome of the toughness that he asks of his players. And that's what he gave off in that phone call, and that's what he encouraged us to be in the game. So it was easy to rally around that.
It was, I think we talked about this last week. October 21st was the last win you guys had before this last weekend. I mean, that's how long it was. We talked a little bit how the locker room can just be an absolutely lonely and quiet place after losses. Describe what this locker room was like on Saturday, and just kind of where everybody's head was at. I know sometimes it's not good to just like celebrate for nothing, but I mean, like that must have felt good to get in there and have a little bit more of a positive attitude in that locker room.
No, for sure. And I think also just like, it doesn't matter who it is. You have to celebrate the wins. Mm-hmm. It's hard to win in college football. You just can't let it go too far to where you become complacent in your preparation for the next game. Right. And so we enjoyed that game in the locker room. You know, the vibes were awesome and everybody was having a good time after the game. And then once you leave that stadium, you wake up the next morning and snap. We're into SMU mode now. And so it's like, it was awesome. Glad that we were able to get a win last week, but what we did last week has no bearing on what we're going to be doing this week. You know, the work begins all over again, and you got to come out and grind and earn the right to be confident for our game on Friday. But, you know, so I think while we enjoy the victories, they are short-lived a little bit, but those moments you get in the locker room as a team after are kind of one of those you know, special times where you can just kind of enjoy each other. You know, you've worked so hard for the entire off season to be able to go out and perform well. And so you got to enjoy it when you get the chance. I mean, Kalani loves to do dance competitions in the locker room and things after the games. I think the guys are a little shy. I think we got to get the cameras out of there. But I think there's too many cameras because guys don't want to end up on Instagram.
They do.
Or
I was going to say they do anyway. Yeah, everybody's doing the war.
Kalani mentioned that today. He was like, maybe the team meeting, like, maybe we need to get the cameras out of there. So maybe next game we'll kick all the cameras out. And we can have a real party.
Yeah,
there you go.
Then the old linemen start taking their shirts off. That's when it gets fun.
Things get nuts.
When the cameras are gone, we'll get involved.
The offense looked great on Saturday. The defense looked good too, and I know that they've put a lot of emphasis on creating more chaos, and they did that against Southern Illinois. 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. You're going against those guys in practice every day. You'd know better than anybody how to answer this question. How much different is the defense and their ability to create chaos this year than last year when they struggled to do so?
Very different. I think you know, ironically, schematically, it's the same defense. It's a lot of the same players, but had a great offseason with Coach Phyllis. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, and just that experience in the system. They're able to use the scheme to their advantage. Where it's like last year, you know, it was just their first season in it, learning how to execute what Coach Hill wants. Whereas this year, they know that defense like the back of their hand, and they're able to use that scheme to their advantage and play to it a little more. And so I think in those aspects is why, you know, that they played really well, and I'm looking forward to watching them ball against SMU too.
Connor Pay, every week he's right here with us on the Players Club as we get you ready for another BYU game this week. Of course, Friday matchup against SMU down in Dallas at Gerald Ford Stadium. It's a nice part of town too. Look, this is when I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area as a kid, and SMU, everybody knew that's where all the rich kids went to school. But you know, now that was that was only 10 or 12 years after the death penalty stuff, and so that football program's a lot different now. They're going to be tough this weekend. So good luck, man. Stay healthy, and we're always looking forward to it. Thanks for hanging out with us again this week.
Thank you, guys, man. It's always a blast.
Hey, Connor. Before you go, thanks for putting the image in my mind of the offensive line dancing around in the locker room without their shirts on. I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna sneak.
Anytime.
We're gonna sneak a camera in there. By the way, it'll be fine. All right, we'll take the break here. We got more to go around the corner. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.